Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Continuing taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, text 2. Dharma protita kaitavatra paramoni matsaranam satam vetyang vastavang atra vastu sivarang tapotayan muranam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimba Parai Ishvara Sadyorit Avruttaritra Kritibis Sushubis Tatsanat. Translation. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are material motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Sri Vyasadeva, is sufficient in itself for God realization. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, he becomes attached to the Supreme Lord. So we continue in the purport. In the Vedas, the above mentioned 4 activities are prescribed in a regulative way, so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature, which can be understood only by pure devotees of the Lord, who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there is keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotees of the Lord rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialist because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but they are well-wishers of everyone, and they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. The contemporary socialist conception of a competitionless society is artificial, because in the socialist state there is competition for the post of dictator. From the point of view of the Vedas, or from the point of view of common human activities, sense gratification is the basic of material life. There are 3 paths mentioned in the Vedas. One involves fruitive activities to gain promotion to better planets. Another involves worshipping different demigods for promotion to the planets of the demigods. And another involves realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him. The impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and above this there is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than the impersonalist literatures and higher than the Jnana-kanda divisions of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma-kanda division and even higher than the Upasana-kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Karma-kanda, there is competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification, and there is similar competition in the Jnana-kanda and the Upasana-kanda. The Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance of the root of all categories. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the same time the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates the simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with Janmatyasya Sutra. This knowledge of the energy of the Lord being simultaneously one and different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculators' attempt to establish the energy of the Absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conception of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development of the transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and difference lead one immediately to the state of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are 1. Those miseries which arise from the mind and body. 2. Those miseries inflicted by other living beings. And 3. Those miseries arising from a natural catastrophes, over which we have no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotees unto the absolute person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute, and at the same time in the eternal position of a servant of the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the lord of all his ways, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming a servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service one immediately freed from material encumbrances. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Sri Vyasadeva. It is written in the maturity of his spiritual life through the mercy of Narada. Sri Vyasadeva is an authorized incarnation of Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Therefore there is no question as to his authority. He is the author of all Vedic literatures, yet he recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavatam above all others. In other Puranas there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigods, but Bhagavatam only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are different parts of that body. Consequently, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. The Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as the spotless Purana and distinguish it from all other Puranas. The proper method for receiving the transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word used herein as guidance is sushrushu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. Mukham karoti bhatalam bhangam langate grimyat kripatamam mande sri gurum dina charanam. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are material motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth. This is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva is sufficient in itself for God realization. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, he becomes attached to the Supreme Lord. So Vyasadeva is giving us some information here about Bhagavatam. Free informations that it's the highest literature in existence, and there's no cheating or no materially motivated religion, and it is it removes all miseries, and it distinguishes reality from illusion. So these are the three he mentioned of the Bhagavatam. And then he gives also the explanation of how one has to act, what qualities one has to imbibe in order to understand this knowledge. So first he says that there's no cheating in this Bhagavatam. There's no materialistic religion. Dharma protita kaitava. Kaitava means materialistic cheating, and utita means pushed out, on it's not there. And pro is sort of like a prefix that enhances that. So it's completely, there's no materialistic religion in Bhagavatam. So that means everything in Bhagavatam is directly about Krishna consciousness. There's no mundane things there. Jaiva Dharma gives three explanations of how Dharma is understood. There's Anicca Dharma, there's Naimittika Dharma, and there's Nicca Dharma. So Anicca Dharma means, of course, irreligious. That means people have no conception in that form of religion. People have no conception of their soul. They have no conception of the Supreme Lord. So that's Anicca Dharma. And then there's Naimittika Dharma. That is, one have a conception of God, the soul, and the relation, but uses mundane methods to achieve the goal. So that can be yoga, for instance, or just giving money or something, that mundane activities for achieving and doing yoga asanas, and then it all becomes fully God realized. And then there's the Nicca Dharma, which is real Dharma. That is understanding of the soul and the Supreme Personality of God, and the sambandha between them. So that is the real Dharma, and that's what we hear. This is what Dharma is. But Dharma can become contaminated, but like the soul cannot be contaminated, right? But the soul can become covered. Like the sun cannot be covered really with a cloud, because there's not such big clouds doesn't exist. The sun is enormous, but it can cover our vision. So the sun as such is not covered, but our vision of the sun is covered. In the same way, like the soul cannot really be contaminated. The soul is pure by nature, but our vision of it, our understanding, our relationship with it, our connection with it can be contaminated or covered. So this is what we hear about Dharma. So the Dharma, we give examples to people when we explain that this is not really like all the other sectarian religions, that we are speaking about Dharma. We're not really speaking about religion. Prabhupada said religion can change. You can be a Christian today and become a Muslim tomorrow, or become an atheist like this. Religion can change. But that is the difference. Dharma, real Dharma, Nicca Dharma, cannot change. It's what it is. And we often give the example of fire. The Dharma of fire is to be hot, etc., and giving illumination. And the fire of water is to be liquid and liquid anyway. But that can change, right? There's something in the external environment that can change water, for instance. So water is no longer liquid. If it's very cold, the water freezes to ice. In one sense, it's still, the Dharma is still there. Immediately you take the ice and put it in a natural environment where it's not so cold, it'll become water again. So this is the nature of the soul. The nature is the Dharma is there. It cannot be changed. That is the Dharma. That is the inherent, intrinsic nature of the soul, is to be Satchidananda. But if we identify with matter, three modes of material nature, then we cannot see, we lose that relationship. So that becomes then, if like water freezes, or we lose that relationship with the soul and Krishna as the super soul, if we lose that relationship, then it becomes nisarga. It changes in that sense, but only our conception of it. So that changes like the water freezes. That changes to become nisarga. And then we are no longer in that Dharma. And that means we are covered by the false ego and the three modes of material nature. Famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarasha Ahankara Vimutadma. So immediately we become, at the ahangara, we become completely vimudha, not only mudha, but vimudha, again it's a prefix, enhancing that illusion, the quality of illusion. So we become completely bewildered and loses our Krishna consciousness. Ahangara vimudha, kataham iti manyate. And then we think, kataham, I am the doer. I am the doer of all my activities. Immediately we have that thought, what happens? The identification becomes stronger. So all this, it's like a vicious circle. We identify with matter, we identify with matter, and then that sinful activity or that illusion, that develops, so it becomes even more. So this ahankara becomes even stronger, and the free modes of material nature becomes stronger. And the only way to counteract this is, of course, what we hear here is by Bhagavatam. Is by Krishna consciousness. And Krishna says, this is my energy. I created it. And it's so very difficult to overcome. But immediately if we surrender us unto Krishna, then immediately we can overwin that energy. Otherwise it's impossible. It will constantly be taunted and dragged back. As we spoke the two aspects, a few days ago we spoke about the two aspects of Maya. One of them is avaranatmika, that is constantly dragging us back when we try to make progress. Constantly we are trying to make progress and constantly fighting the senses, and the energy just dragging us back into this nisarga again, where we have no contact with the soul. Then it just becomes cut, or very little. So this is the first, Vyasadeva is explaining. This is not happening in Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is completely pure. There's no adharma, there's no anitya dharma. There's only nitya dharma, the only real thing. Because so many other traditions, you see how, you spoke yesterday, you spoke how there's different religions are being covered. And the demonic tendencies in this world, the demonic persons in this world, is influencing all kinds of traditions. Christianity and all the other traditions. And maybe it's also to some degree sneaking into our tradition, or at least we should be very careful it's not. That we are very vigilant, keep it as it is, keep like everything is there in the Bhagavatam. We shouldn't change anything, we should keep it as it is. And then we have the pure thing. Prabhupada says the temple might leave and I might leave, we left already, but my books will remain. This Shastra will be there to guide us to the right understanding. So the first aspect of this is Vyasadeva telling us that that Bhagavatam is Vyasadeva is telling us that Bhagavatam is is adharma. There's no adharma. There's only dharma. And then it says it's vastavam astra vastu. So vastavam atra vastu. Vastu means substance, and vastavam means real. And real means it's not temporary, as you know from Bhagavad Gita. It's the real thing. So there's avastava vastu and vastava vastu. So vastava vastu, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Dharma, vastava vastu means real substance. So that means spirituality, Krishna, the soul, holy names, that is real vastu. And then there's avastava vastu, which is material subject matters, which is of course temporary. So when we understand this vastava vastu gyan, then we are related, then we get that vastava vastu from the Bhagavatam. That's the only way to really get it from the scriptures, from the pure devotee is describing the scriptures. So it says this is the essence that distinguished reality from illusion. What is real and what is not real. Again, it takes this nisarga quality where it loses its real identity. And then it says tapotrayan mulanam. It uproots the threefold miseries. What are the threefold miseries? Prabhupada also speaks about them in the purport. Yes, even though he doesn't mention the Sanskrit, yeah. So there's Adidaivika Klesa, there's troubles or miseries coming from the demigods, from nature, earthquakes, rainfall, etc. And there's Adibhautika Klesa, problems of sufferings coming from other living entities, mosquitoes, other humans, or wife, or husband, or whatever. And Adhyatmika, the verse, there is suffering coming from the mind. So the mind is constantly like giving, what is it? WHO says it in what is it? I think it's 2024 or something. They say this will be the highest, the worst disease in the world. Problems coming from the mind, transgressing cancer and all these things we have in the world. And it's already happening. So many people, you see them, they have to take these happy pills or psychopharmia to exist. Or how, if you analyze the world, people in the world, maybe especially in the Western world, how everybody is constantly taking intoxication just to tolerate existence. Some, maybe they are drinking every day, or they are smoking dope every day, or they are smoking, taking any kind of hard heroin or whatever, or they are doping themselves with being completely absorbed in their work. Or it's very, very rare you have a person who is sitting down and contemplating what is the meaning of life, where do I come from. We don't do that, because that enhances us to get closer to God. So why do we not want to get closer to Krishna? Because we do not have this knowledge. Most people, and we do, hopefully to some degree, we do, but most people, they do not have this knowledge. So when they hear about religion, they hear these cheating religions. They hear this influenced by the demons, and then they see this cannot be right. What is the most common thing we hear from people? Oh, if God exists, why is there so much evil in the world? But because they removed karma. One of the pillars of religion, you can say, like what everything is built on. If karma is not there, nothing makes sense. Nothing of the rest makes sense, because then why is God being all good? Why there's suffering? Why there's small children dying? Because they removed karma. So this is one of their demonic activities that persuade people away from religion. So they had this propaganda that's been going for centuries, right? This propaganda sending it out, that religion doesn't really work. Who was it? The communist who went outside the church and stood there with bread. So you go in the church and you pray, you go and see and you get bread. You go and pray for bread. And they said, I pray, oh God, please. And they stood there when they came out. So, did you get any bread? Okay, you get it from us. So that is religion, right? We give you, we supply. That's what they want. They want us. They want us to just be controlled, right, by them. So they supply everything. Like you own nothing and you'll be happy. So everything is just supplied by the governments, and then they have full control. And you're not worshipping God, then you worship the government, like Vena. So Vena said, why you're being so unchaste? Right? I'm the king. The king, like, you should worship me as God. And God, he cannot supply, but I can supply. Maybe Vena didn't say that, but that was the essence, right? This was really his mentality. I can supply. You don't need to worship God. You should worship me. So this is there. The whole society is so demonic. We in Kali Yuga, everything is so degraded. So Tapataryon Mulanam, this Bhagavatam, Unmulanam, root, Mulanam means root. So this uproots the threefold miseries, all these kleshas, they are taken away by Bhagavatam. If we need some Bhagavata Sevaya, if we study it every day, then it's just uprooted from our heart. And then the Nisarga disappears, right? We get in a nice warm environment and the ice melting and we get in contact with the soul again, and when we're in contact with the soul, next to the soul is Krishna. So then we're in contact with Krishna. Bhagavad Gita says that's the only thing, right? The only thing is that is just covered with such a small space, the soul and the super soul. It's just next to each other. But due to Nisarga, due to Anitya Dharma and Naimittika Dharma, we cannot see it. The soul is covered by the Ahamkara. So this uproots the threefold miseries. And then he says, who can understand this knowledge? Very important. Nimatsaranam satam vidyam. Vidyam means understand. Nimatsaranam satam. Satam, the devotees or pure souls. Nimatsaranam, who is completely, Prabhupada translated as 100% pure in heart. I'm not completely sure what Matsarana means, but I think it means envy. Also, Prabhupada uses the word, and the Prabhupada uses envy. He says devotees are non-envious, but all these people are constantly envious of each other. It's just the animals fighting the animals, and the society fighting the society, etc. So Prabhupada gives these examples. So this envy is really uprooted by Bhagavatam. This envy is taken away. It's only those who do not have that envy that can understand Bhagavatam. So we know the envy is the epitome of envy is Sisupal, who got this extreme envy towards Krishna, constantly blaspheming Krishna. And Krishna had given the benediction or promise to Sisupal's mother that he would allow him to blaspheme him up to 100 times, but then he would act. And Sisupal would always blaspheme Krishna, but he would always be counting. So, now I reached, so now I better stop. Because he knew Krishna was very powerful. Maybe he didn't understand Krishna was God, but he knew he was very powerful. Again, that's the nature of envy. How is this verse in Bhagavad Gita? 9.1. No. 9.1. No. Come on. Itan Nirvidamana, no? Yeah. How is it done?
Das ist Sri Bhagavan Vacha.
Idam tute, thank you. Idam tute kuya tamam prabhaksham yana swede. Gyanam vijnana saitam yat gatva moksha se subhat. So immediately Krishna says, what's it? Idam tute guyatamam. This confidential idam te tu guyatamam. Pravakshamyani. Now I'm explaining to you. Pravakshamyani anasvirve. Because you're not envious of me. Then I'll give you this knowledge about Gyan and Vigyan. I give everything to you now. Just this one quality, you're not envious, he says to Arjuna. You're not envious of me. Then I'll give you all knowledge, both Gyan and Vigyan. Nominous knowledge and phenomenal knowledge, everything. Yatskatva moksha sesubat, and you will be free from all miseries by this knowledge. And this is Bhagavatam. This is what Krishna is giving here. When Bhagavad Gita stops, Sarvadharma Pritidham, Bhagavad Gita stops, that's where Bhagavatam starts. So that's no kaitava here. Here everything is just for this one purpose of elevated us-conditioned souls to Paramhamsas. Prabhupada says this is what it is in the introduction. This is the Paramhamsa literature. So when you hear Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, when you hear Bhagavatam every morning, that's what happens. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya is serving the devotees and hearing Bhagavatam every day. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. All that is troublesome to the heart. Well, that means the klesas. This is the same Bhagavatam is saying here. All this is destroyed simply by this one activity of worshipping Bhagavatam. But it's only possible to understand Bhagavatam. Maybe the next verse where it says that this is the confidential knowledge. That Bhagavad Gita says this is confidential knowledge. Raja Vidyam, Raja Kuyam. It's the king of all knowledge. It's Raja Vidya. It's the highest knowledge. I'll give you confidential knowledge. I'll give you the highest knowledge, but it's Raja Kuyam. It is confidential. Raja Vidya, Raja Prayaksha, Rakamam Dham Yam. And it's understood by direct experience. So I'll give you this highest knowledge. It's available, but it's only if you follow this one criteria that you are able to become free from enviousness. Otherwise, it's not. It's Kuyam. It's confidential. It's Raja Kuyam. It's the king of confidentiality. That's why people can, like this person came to Prabhupada. They brought this person to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, this person can recite the whole Bhagavad Gita, I think he said, in an hour. And Prabhupada said, yes, but can you live it in a few minutes? Or can you live it in 10 minutes? So this is the thing, right? It's easy, everybody can get a Bhagavatam. And we hear that it's not really allowed. Bhagavad Gita says it's not really allowed, right? Krishna says you shouldn't explain this in the 18th chapter. You shouldn't explain this knowledge to those who are envious like this. So, but we are giving this knowledge in Bhagavatam, Caitanya Caritamrita, the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, very, very high literature, very, very high esoteric topic, giving it to people who are standing there eating a hot dog. But they won't understand it. They won't get into this confidential knowledge. That doesn't mean that they will not purify them. They will understand the Sambandha Gyan, if they have some purity. And the Abhidheya, but the Prayojam, no. That's not available. You have to become non-envious first. So everybody is in Prabhupada, everybody in this world is envious of Krishna. That's why they're turning him back, right? Trying to convince all other people that he doesn't exist, or he has no potencies. So that everybody is envious of Krishna. So the devotees, they should come to the point where there's nirmatsanam satam, being devotees, being completely non-envious of Krishna, and Prabhupada says here also of the Vaishnavas, of the devotees. So this is what we should constantly endeavor to develop, these qualities. Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavatya Kinchana, the devotees, they have all the qualities of the demigods. And for one who is not a devotee, where's any good qualities? Bhagavatam says, there's no good qualities, there are no good qualities. And then you can say, but he's cultured, no, if he doesn't understand this fact, no, he's an animal. He's an animal, two-legged dvipadu. Prasupnat, two-legged animal, Bhagavatam says. So it's there in the Bhagavatam, and now we have this. Tomorrow we will hear Prabhupada, but then the next day we will hear how one will attain that, and how Krishna will give that specifically to his devotee. So I think I end here. And any comments or questions? Yes.
Oh, when you just mentioned here how this verse in the Bhagavatam explaining that the devotees possess all the qualities of the demigods. So we see by practically observance that it doesn't seem like that always. And then of course we know there's three categories of devotees: Kanishta, Madhyam and Uttam, Adhikaris. So when it states that devotees possess all the qualities of the demigods, is that only for someone attaining a certain stage, Madhyam or Uttam, or what?
Prabhupada said on one place, he said devotees means Uttama. So in one sense that is really a devotee, and Prabhupada often said we are aspiring devotees, or we are aspiring Vaishnavas. So Prabhupada also says Vaishnava is a very, very high thing. It's not easy, it's not cheap, and I think we all experience that. It's very, very difficult to really give up the attachment to matter and take completely to Krishna consciousness. So yes, to some degree, that's what it means. But it also, I don't think necessarily it's Uttama Bhakti. But we've been speaking in the last couple of days, we've been speaking a little about how the devotees, they are often not really living up to the standard of what it means to be a devotee. So if we are not really living up to that standard, these qualities will not necessarily develop. And then we will keep these demonic tendencies, demonic qualities, as mentioned in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where that will constantly drag us down. And like these are normal, so-called normal qualities, like anger, envy, illusion, madness, and all these. This is the common qualities in people out there. And most devotees also have them. I have them. But it's said in the second chapter of Bhagavatam, first time, that the devotees who, this whole section where Krishna explains how one develop bhakti, Tamod, what was the last line? Tamod.
Yes, Tamod Bhava Kamalo.
Cheta eta anavidam stitam sattva prasidate. That these Lobhyam and Tamas and Raja, they are still there in the heart. They're still there in the heart, but they no longer influence the devotee. We just come to the level of goodness by every day hearing Bhagavatam, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So again, this is what Bhagavatam does, and the chanting what it does. is it uproots these, as Bhagavatam says here, these misery, these kleshas, so that the heart becomes pure. And then we can understand Bhagavatam. So it's just like a what's called empowering circle, that like if you hear Bhagavatam every day, then it purifies the heart, and the heart is purified, then we can actually understand Bhagavatam, and then when we understand Bhagavatam, then we can actually chant purely. So these anatas might still be there in the devotees, this is the essence, they might still be there in the devotees, but they are no longer, the devotee will not allow them to influence him. And they're no longer enforced by constantly being repeated or used, by us, anger, envy, these qualities, no longer being used, gradually they will leave the heart. So this is the process of bhakti. Like it's pure Chaitanya Candradasa, it purifies the heart. And then when it purifies the heart, we get more taste for hearing. We get more taste for hearing, that purifies the heart even more. So this is the process. But if we give it up, if we take away some of it, then we will not get the full result. Anything else?
I was thinking that Candra said that in my understanding at least mundane religion is kind of enemy in itself. You just do it to get things to enjoy, which is actually opposing Krishna and God.
Yeah. Most use religion to get stuff.
Yeah, that's what we do, but I do it,
yeah.
Actually.
To those listening outside, we have Jagadwala visiting, so nice, he will be here for a few weeks. Yeah, most use religion to get some things. Give me a house, give me a car, give me a color TV, Jai Jagadisa Hare. Like it's also in India, right? This is the whole culture is just getting something. That's why Prabhupada mentioned here worshipping the demigods. That they're worshipping the demigods because they give me things. Give me, so that I will be happy, right? So that means again anicca dharma, or best naimittika dharma. It's not really religion. It's just people using some methods, giving for people. Okay, you want things. Krishna reciprocates. He gives whatever we desires. So Krishna says, you want this? Okay, I give it to you. Here it is. So you have to follow this process. Then he gives the whole Karma Kanda section in the Vedas. Most of the Vedas deal with Karma Kanda. 90% of the Vedas something. Well, as Bhagavad Gita says, it's all like poisonous flowers. It's poisonous because it keeps us entangled in the material world. So Bhagavatam is there to teach us what to ask for. Prabhupada often said we should only ask for pure devotional service, nothing else. This is our prayer. Oh Krishna, please just allow me to chant purely and give me pure devotional service. That's my only desire. Not an hamnas dinamna sundamin kamitam vagati jagadisa kamani. But I have one desire, Mama Janmani Ishwari, like birth after birth after birth, Krishna, please give me a Haitaki bhakti. Please give me unmotivated devotional service to you. This is my prayer. This is my desire. I have one desire, but that is the desire. I don't want anything else. So if we can come to that point where we live like this, then everything will be revealed in Bhagavatam. The illusion will be broken. Now we don't know who we are. Most people, they don't know who they are. They identify with the temporary matter, and therefore they are suffering constantly. So the only way to give up that suffering is to understand the difference between Nitya Dharma and Anitya Dharma, Naimittika Dharma. Only reason, only possibility. So thank you very much. Grandarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.